Have you ever wondered why a single voice can feel like an entire generation speaking at once? When Beyoncé steps onto a stage, the air itself seems to tremble. Her presence is not just performance, it is ritual, testimony, inheritance. She is a woman who has become more than herself, a symbol stitched into the very fabric of Black womanhood across the globe. For Black women everywhere, Beyoncé is not simply entertainment. She is a mirror, a crown, a warning, and a prayer all at once. To understand her meaning, you must first understand the landscape she emerged into. Black women in America have long been forced to stand at the crossroads of invisibility and hypervisibility, their bodies consumed by spectacle while their voices were silenced. They carried nations on their backs, raised children not their own, sang hymns of freedom in the fields, and whispered survival strategies in kitchens and salons. Yet their stories were often erased, their beauty distorted, their power undermined. Into this fractured lineage, Beyoncé was born, a child of Houston, Texas, with skin like honey and a voice as sharp as lightning. Her rise was not only about music charts or awards, it was about reclaiming a narrative that had been stolen for centuries. And you, sitting here, listening to this story, have felt the power of her music even if you didn't realize it. When Run the World Girls blares through speakers, or when Brown Skin Girl washes over a room, you are hearing not just a catchy chorus, but centuries of longing turned into sound. Beyoncé's voice carries both the ache of struggle and the ecstasy of triumph. It is gospel and trap, blues and pop, a symphony of every burden and every celebration Black women have ever carried. But make no mistake, she is not merely adored because she is talented. She matters because she is archetypal. She embodies what Carl Jung would call the great mother and the warrior queen, what African cosmologies might name the Orisha energy of Oshun and Oya, the sweet water and the storm. She is soft and fierce, vulnerable and unyielding, a paradox that feels profoundly familiar to every Black woman who has ever had to smile while breaking inside, who has ever had to lead while the world doubted her, who has ever been told she must be both perfect and invisible. The beauty of Beyoncé is that she performs this paradox publicly. She allows the world to witness her armor and her wounds. Consider her 2016 masterpiece, Lemonade. That album was not just about marital betrayal, it was about ancestral betrayal, the breaking of Black women's hearts across centuries. It was about infidelity, not only between husband and wife, but between America and the daughters it promised liberty to, only to leave them shackled in new forms of bondage. The image of Beyoncé smashing car windows with a baseball bat while smiling in a flowing yellow dress was more than spectacle, it was prophecy. It was an eruption of rage long silenced, a declaration that joy and fury can coexist in the same body. And perhaps you felt something stir in your chest watching that scene. Perhaps you recognized yourself, your mother, your grandmother in her fire. That is her true genius. Not the glittering costumes or immaculate choreography, though those matter too. It is her ability to awaken something dormant within you, to remind you that survival itself can be a work of art. Still, her meaning cannot be reduced to rebellion alone. Beyoncé has also become the patron saint of excellence, the impossible standard, some would argue. She is celebrated for her perfectionism, her tireless discipline, her ability to command armies of dancers with a single gesture. But there is a double edge here. For Black women everywhere, Beyoncé represents both possibility and pressure. She shows them they can own arenas, build empires, bend entire industries to their will. Yet she also embodies the crushing demand to always be flawless, to never falter, to prove over and over that their worth is undeniable. This duality is the essence of her symbolism. Beyoncé is liberation and burden, joy and exhaustion, freedom and chains or glittering like gold. She carries the collective psyche of Black womanhood on her shoulders, and in her shine, millions of women glimpse their own reflection. The question is, when you look at her, do you see a goddess, or do you see a woman who has been sculpted by centuries of longing into something almost divine? What Beyoncé really means to Black women is not easy to say in one breath. She is a cultural text, a living myth, a cipher of both empowerment and expectation. To watch her ascend, is to remember that every step she takes is built upon the bones of ancestors, upon Harriet's torch, upon Nina's piano keys, upon Whitney's soaring notes. She is a bridge between past and future, a reminder that the story of Black women is not linear but cyclical, always returning, always transforming. And you, yes, you must ask yourself what you demand of her and what you demand of the women around you. For Beyoncé is not merely a star, she is a reflection of a truth the world tries to ignore, that Black women have always been the center, even when cast to the margins. When Beyoncé stands before the world, the spectacle is dazzling. Yet beneath the glitter lies a story woven with centuries of burden. She is not simply an artist, she is a vessel through which the collective voice of Black women finds expression. To understand her true meaning, you must peel back the layers of fame, revealing a narrative that stretches from slave ships to stadium lights, from whispered prayers in hush harbors to anthems that shake the rafters of global arenas. Her body is a battleground where America projects both fascination and fear. The curves of her hips, the depth of her skin, the texture of her hair, each has been politicized, celebrated, commodified, and weaponized against her. In a world where Black women have often been reduced to caricatures, Beyoncé insists on presenting herself as multidimensional, sensual yet sacred, glamorous yet grounded, flawless yet fractured. She refuses to let the world flatten her into stereotype, instead reshaping those stereotypes into emblems of power. Think about the Super Bowl halftime show of 2016. Clad in black leather with her dancers in formation, fists raised, she invoked the spirit of the Black Panthers and echoed Malcolm X's proclamation that the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. That performance was more than entertainment. It was confrontation. It forced millions of viewers, many of whom came for spectacle, to confront history, identity, and rebellion. And perhaps you felt the tension ripple across living rooms, as if her very presence threatened the fragile myth of a colorblind America. But Beyoncé's genius lies not only in her public provocations, but in her ability to embody intimate truths. Watch her behind the stage, in documentaries where exhaustion etches itself into her bones, and you see the toll of carrying such weight. You see a woman negotiating between her personal desires and the endless expectations placed upon her shoulders. For Black women, this is achingly familiar, the need to excel in every arena while silently carrying pain that the world refuses to acknowledge. Here lies the paradox of her meaning. Beyoncé is a beacon of possibility, yet she also reflects the unrelenting demand for perfection. She reveals the dual script written for Black women: be exceptional or be erased. Her relentless discipline, her almost inhuman drive, inspires awe, but it also mirrors the exhausting truth that Black women must work twice as hard for half the recognition. You feel the triumph in her, but also the price. Her motherhood, too, is deeply symbolic. When she presented her pregnancy with Blue Ivy in 2011, the world gasped as if divinity itself had been announced. And when she revealed her twin pregnancy years later in that now iconic floral photograph, she invoked imagery of Black fertility, of goddess traditions, of rebirth. These were not mere announcements. They were reclamations of narrative. For centuries, Black women's reproductive lives had been controlled, exploited, or shamed. Beyoncé turned motherhood into sacred art, making her womb a stage where legacy itself was choreographed. And you must ask yourself, why did that image go viral across the globe? Why did millions feel compelled to share it, dissect it, worship it? Because in her, they saw more than a celebrity. They saw a Black woman declaring her own body holy in a world that so often dehumanizes it. Yet Beyoncé does not only embody holiness, she embodies erotic power as well. From the sultry grooves of Partition to the unapologetic sensuality of her performances, she reclaims Black female sexuality from the clutches of exploitation and shame. She dares to say, desire is not a weakness, it is a weapon. And in doing so, she unsettles centuries of narratives that cast Black women as either hypersexual temptresses or sexless laborers. She insists on the fullness of humanity. But beneath this, the whisper of vulnerability remains. You saw it in the tears shed during her HBO documentaries, in the raw cracks of her voice when she spoke of miscarriage, in the fierce lyrics of betrayal etched into Lemonade. She lets the world glimpse the pain, the humanity beneath the perfection. And for Black women, that vulnerability is as significant as her triumph. For it says, even the strongest can falter, even the goddess can weep, even the icon is human. This is why Beyoncé is not merely adored, she is needed. She fills a void left by history, a void where Black women's stories have been ignored or erased. She embodies resilience, but she also embodies fragility. She holds power, but she also reveals the cost of wielding it. She dances between myth and woman, reminding us that every crown is both a blessing and a burden. And you, watching her, cannot remain neutral. Her presence demands something from you. She asks, will you celebrate Black women only when they shimmer like gold? Or will you honor them in their exhaustion, in their silence, in their truth? Beyoncé means to Black women everywhere what the world itself has denied them. The right to be everything, powerful and weary, beautiful and flawed, divine and human. If you look closely at Beyoncé's trajectory, you'll see that her meaning is not static. It evolves with each era, each reinvention, each deliberate cultural gesture. She does not simply create music. She constructs epics of identity, shaping how Black women see themselves and how the world must reckon with them. Each album is a text, each performance a sermon, each image a mirror reflecting centuries of longing, pain, and glory. When Lemonade erupted in 2016, it was not just a record, it was a revolution of narrative. Here was a woman at the peak of fame, laying bare betrayal, grief, and ancestral memory. To watch Lemonade was to witness an intimate diary transformed into collective scripture. The poetry of Worcestershire intertwined with the visual majesty of Southern Black life created something that transcended entertainment. It became a cultural artifact, forcing audiences to reckon with generational trauma, with slavery's lingering shadows, with the complex dynamics of Black love. For Black women, it was recognition. For everyone else, it was education, sometimes uncomfortable, often necessary. In Lemonade, Beyoncé stood as both priestess and confessor. She spoke of infidelity, yet the betrayal extended beyond personal pain. It echoed the centuries-long betrayals against Black women, their labor exploited, their love unreciprocated, their loyalty taken for granted. When she smashed car windows and holed up, it was not only an act of personal rage, it was archetypal. It was the eruption of centuries of silenced anger, the fury of women told to endure silently. In her destruction, many found their own liberation, but she did not leave her audience in ashes. She led them through forgiveness, through rebirth, through the deep waters of healing. This is her alchemy, transforming personal wounds into communal medicine. Beyoncé does not simply expose, she rebuilds. And that, perhaps, is her deepest gift to Black women, showing that the cycle of betrayal can end in renewal, that pain can be transmuted into power. Yet the cultural weight she carries is immense. Consider what it means for her every action to be dissected, her every lyric politicized. A white pop star may sing of heartbreak, and it is taken as personal. Beyoncé sings of heartbreak, and it becomes a referendum on race, gender, and power. This double burden reveals the unrelenting scrutiny Black women endure. They are rarely allowed the luxury of privacy, rarely given the grace of neutrality. Beyoncé bears this burden with regal poise, but its weight is undeniable. And then came Homecoming, her 2019 Coachella performance turned documentary. This was not just a concert, it was a coronation. In a festival historically dominated by whiteness, Beyoncé transformed the stage into an HBCU homecoming, complete with marching bands, step routines, and Black cultural pageantry. It was unapologetic, uncompromising, and revolutionary. She did not assimilate into the dominant culture. She made the dominant culture adapt to her. And in that moment, she declared that Black culture is not a subtext, it is the text. Think of the symbolism, a Black woman headlining Coachella, commanding thousands with the traditions of her ancestors, making the world dance to rhythms it had once dismissed. This was more than music, it was reclamation. And if you watch closely, you may have felt it. The pride, the defiance, the truth that no matter how much society tries to marginalize, blackness will always rise. But her meaning is not confined to stage and song. Her philanthropy, her business ventures, her activism all serve a larger tapestry. She champions scholarships for Black students, speaks on police brutality, supports disaster relief. Through these acts, she demonstrates that power must not only be performed, it must be enacted. And for Black women, watching her wield both cultural and economic power is affirmation that their contributions are not only aesthetic, but world-shaping. Yet, there remains the haunting question: at what cost? The near-mythical discipline she embodies reveals a life sculpted by sacrifice. Endless rehearsals, physical exhaustion, the loss of ordinary privacy. Beyoncé has confessed that even her pregnancies required navigating through relentless work schedules. She is celebrated as flawless, but flawlessness is a demand that devours. This is the paradox. She liberates Black women even as she embodies the impossible standard placed upon them. And perhaps that paradox is why she resonates so deeply. Because every Black woman knows what it means to be asked to be invincible while carrying invisible wounds. Every Black woman understands the tension between being exalted and being exploited. Beyoncé does not solve this tension. She lives it. And in living it, she reflects back to her sisters the truth of their existence. You are both more than human and deeply human, divine yet mortal, extraordinary yet exhausted. In her silence off stage, in the carefully guarded privacy of her life, Beyoncé asserts another form of power: the right to withhold. In a culture obsessed with exposure, her restraint is radical. It tells Black women that they are not obligated to bear everything, that their mysteries are sacred, that withholding can be as powerful as revealing. What Beyoncé really means to Black women everywhere is this: the permission to be everything at once, to be furious and forgiving, sacred and sensual, extraordinary and ordinary, to exist in multiplicity without apology. And so we arrive at the heart of her meaning, the way Beyoncé has become both symbol and sanctuary. For Black women, she is not merely an entertainer, but a vessel of possibility, a living text that says, "You are allowed to be infinite." She carries the lineage of foremothers, Aretha, Diana, Tina, Nina, yet she does not remain in their shadow. She transforms inheritance into innovation, fusing old spirituals with trap beats, church with club, sacred with profane. And through this fusion, she teaches that identity is not fractured, but layered. To be Black and woman is not a limitation. It is a boundless canvas of reinvention. Her performances echo African diasporic traditions of call and response. When she sings, millions answer. This is not coincidence. It is communion. Black women hear their own voices amplified in hers. The hushed prayers of grandmothers, the rallying cries of activists, the whispered affirmations spoken in the mirror before stepping into a world that often refuses to see them. Beyoncé becomes the megaphone of collective memory, making audible what has too long been silenced. But her role is not only celebratory, it is cautionary. Her very existence as a cultural icon reveals the double-edged sword of representation. To be the one, the standard bearer, the exemplar, is to be burdened with expectations impossible to fulfill. She must be perfect, yet relatable, fierce, yet maternal, political, yet palatable. In this tension lies the truth of Black womanhood in America, asked to embody everything for everyone, while being denied the grace to simply be. Beyoncé exposes this contradiction by living it, and perhaps that is why she is endlessly dissected, why her every gesture is interpreted as a message, why her silence provokes as much speculation as her speech. She has become an oracle, whether she desires it or not, and in her oracular presence, she forces society to grapple with its own projections. What does it mean that so many need Beyoncé to be their savior, their muse, their model? What does it reveal about a culture that demands transcendence from Black women while refusing them safety, softness, or reprieve? For her sisters, though, Beyoncé's meaning is not abstract. It is visceral. It is the swelling pride when she stands on global stages, unflinching in her Blackness. It is the validation of seeing natural hair, dark skin, and African rhythms celebrated, not hidden. It is the catharsis of witnessing rage articulated, desire exalted, pain transfigured. She tells them, "You are not invisible. You are not too much. You are not alone." In this way, Beyoncé is less a single woman and more a collective archetype. The mother, the lover, the warrior, the queen. She embodies multiplicities that patriarchal and white supremacist narratives once tried to deny Black women. Through her, they reclaim what was stolen: dignity, sensuality, authority, joy. But beyond the symbolism, beyond the archetypes, lies her enduring humanity. She bleeds, she falters, she aches, and in her vulnerability, she becomes most powerful. Because to see someone who has ascended to unreachable heights still wrestle with betrayal, exhaustion, and doubt is to be reminded that divinity and fragility are not opposites. They are intertwined. This is the true resonance of Beyoncé. She gives permission to embrace complexity. In her, Black women see the possibility of being both myth and mortal, legend and laborer, sacred and scarred. She whispers through song and silence alike, "You are already enough as you are, in all your contradictions." And when the history of this era is written, Beyoncé will not only be remembered as a pop star, but as a cultural force who redefined the meaning of Black womanhood for a global audience. She will stand in the lineage of those who sang freedom into existence, who danced survival into joy, who turned pain into beauty. What Beyoncé really means to Black women everywhere is this: that their existence is not negotiable, their truth not disposable, their power not conditional. She is proof that even in a world that seeks to break them, they remain unbreakable. Legends may fall, but their truth always rises.